The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Moon Tower Soccer. We are going to be joined by Owuraku Ampofo. He is a sports journalist for TV3 in Ghana, really big name in soccer reporting in that country. And so really thrilled to have him on to talk a little bit about, a country that frankly I'm not super knowledgeable about. A player playing in a part of the world professionally that I'm not super knowledgeable about. So really appreciated Owuraku's time and his knowledge. And I think you're going to enjoy this interview. All right. We are thrilled to be joined today by Owuraku Ampofo. Owuraku, thanks so much for joining us. We have some very credible reporting coming out of multiple countries from multiple very reliable journalists saying that Austin FC have signed Ghanaian winger Osman Bukari. You're a man who knows a lot about Ghanaian football, and so we're really grateful to have you here to hopefully share some insight on our future player.
It's a pleasure to be here also. Thank you very much for the opportunity as well.
So I guess tell us a little bit about Bukari's playing style. What kind of player is he?
Well, the trait that stands out for Bukari immediately is his pace. His speed comes to mind. Whenever he's on the ball, he's probably one of the fastest players I've personally ever seen. He is a type of winger who he's predominantly right-footed and more or less like a traditional winger, loves to play from the right side. And so you would usually see him take on his man on the outside and then either put in a cross or shoot with his right foot, because once he goes on the outside, he's on a stronger right foot. That's the type of player that he is. He can also play on the left side and on the inside a bit, but because of how fast he is, coaches usually want to play him out wide. We saw during his time in France with Nantes where he played as a wing back, and he went to Red Star Belgrade in Serbia where he played closer to the striker but still in a wide area, and that saw an increase in his goal involvement. So I think he's a winger, very fast, and also has an eye for a goal and an assist as well.
I think here in Austin, he'll almost certainly be playing out wide and probably on the right-hand side. So I think, that makes a lot of sense from what we've seen so far. He's been getting regular call-ups to the Ghanaian national team since 2021, I think. USA fans especially know, with all the clashes between USMNT and the Black Stars over the years, how many high-level players Ghana has in that squad pretty much every cycle. What is Bukari's place in that team at this moment?
Well, it's a highly competitive team, the Ghana national team at the moment. And the unfortunate thing for someone like Bukari is that I think the wing position is the most competitive in the Black Stars currently, where there's a huge chunk of young players playing all over Europe who are playing as wingers. And so we do have the likes of Fatau Isako at Leicester City. And then there is Kamaldeen Sulemana of Southampton as well. And, a host of other winger options. Even Joseph Pinto, who is in the US as well with LA Galaxy, is also an option. And then there's the more experienced Jordan Ayew. There's Mohamed Kudus, who is the poster boy of the team currently. And then Enes Numa, who also plays straight in France with Lyon. So we're very stacked on the wings. And so it's been quite unfortunate for him that he hasn't got the minutes that he probably deserves. A chunk of his minutes have come as an impact sub, where he usually comes on in the second half to sort of impact games and stretch defenses. And even with those limited minutes, he still made it count. I think he scored about 3 goals so far. The biggest of it all was the one against Portugal in the World Cup. So he showed his talent in the limited minutes that he's got, but he still has a place in the squad. Recently, he's been called once again, and he's always a mainstay in this team. But probably the next level for him is to find a way to break into the starting next side, because that's what he doesn't have at the moment. He's usually first, second, third substitute to come off the bench.
Yeah, so we saw, I know we had to delay recording partially for technical difficulties and also because this Ghana roster came out and you had to go on TV and talk about it. So I saw that Joseph Paintsil is not on this squad. Andre Ayew is not in this squad, and Iñaki Williams is not in this squad. Does that pave a path for Bukari to get more minutes, or are these some of these other guys still going to be competing for that spot as well?
Well, it definitely helps for him personally because one thing that we've seen recently is Inaki Williams being deployed on the right wing and then Semenyo starting down the middle. So if Inaki is not around, that frees at least one spot on the right wing. And then Joseph Painto, he was arguably our best player from the most recent Africa Cup of Nations in Ivory Coast. He also plays on both wings, but usually on the right wing. He's also absent, and so that also frees yet another slot for him as well. I think his direct competitor at the moment would be maybe Fatau Isaaku of Leicester, who plays at the right side. But if he's able to show he can play from the left, I think he has more potential there because Jordan Ayew, he is probably heading towards the twilight of his career, has seen a number of international games. Even at Crystal Palace's club side, he's no longer a starter anymore. So there's that opportunity on that left side. Kamaldeen Sulemana also is not match fit, hasn't played 90 minutes in a very, very long time, has struggled with injury this season, but he makes the squad. The right side is where the competition is. There's Enes Nyoma and then Fatau Isaaku, both left-footed, very talented, have been playing a lot of minutes this season. So maybe on the left side, I think there's an opening, but on the right side is really, really stacked at the moment.
You mentioned Joseph Paintsil. He came to MLS this year and has been really, really good. I guess my first question is like, how much is MLS on the radar of people in Ghana? Is it a league that people are familiar with, or do you just know that okay, sometimes there's a player from here will go play there?
Well, the MLS is quite popular for Ghanaians here because we've had a number of players. We've had David Akam, we've had even Jonathan Mensah, and so even at the period where the Black Stars was probably somewhere near the top in Africa, we still had players coming in from the MLS, and so even the likes of Harrison Afful have all played there, and it just shows how widespread this team is, the diversity that comes from the leagues that they do play in. So yes, Ghanaians do know of the MLS, but for a long time, I think it's been like a global perception where people have seen the MLS as a quote-unquote retirement league. But I think that mindset is slowly changing. Clubs are starting to invest a lot more. The league is becoming more competitive. We're seeing now the MLS is kind of like an opposite now where younger players are now using that as a stepping stone to Europe. And so it's not maybe the thing about someone like Paintsil's move is that in Ghana, people thought that this would probably hinder his chances of playing with the Black Stars because he was playing in Europe, he was playing in either the Europa League or occasionally the Champions League, and now he's going to the MLS. But I was one of the few people who had a counter argument that, look, the MLS has a lot more eyeballs now. I think it's a very growing league. And the thing about Painter is that he goes in as a designated player. He's going to get a lot more money. He's going to live in LA. Imagine working in your ideal holiday destination. You have to also factor in all of these things. And I think
playing next to Ricky Puig as well.
Yeah. It's been great. And we've seen that type of impact that he's having in the league as well. So I think it's only the beginning of us seeing a lot more Ghanaian players heading there even before they approach retirement.
Who's like the highest profile or most famous Ghanaian to play in MLS?
Well, I think I'll probably in recent times it will probably be Jonathan Mensah.
Okay.
It'll be Jonathan Mensah because he's been in the league for a very, very long time. He's won trophies, Columbus Crew, and then Harrison Afful joined him there. And I think their time there was probably more pronounced. We've seen other players come in like Ebenezer Ofori, David Akam, and a number of players have been there. But for me, I think Jonathan Mensah tops that list.
Yeah, I'm a big Jonathan Mensah fan. I was hoping a couple of years back when he was a free agent that Austin might pick him up, but no luck.
Yeah.
So you're also a data guy. You do some data analysis. Do you have any data or any numbers off the top of your head about Osman Bukari?
Well, so for Bukari, I think as of last year, if you're looking at the players who have played at least 60 minutes in the Black Stars, he's the one that is averaging the most goal contributions. So it does tell how efficient he is, in the national team setup. And although he's not getting a lot of minutes, he's still getting in goals as well, even when he comes off the substitutes bench as well. You're looking at this season where he got in 10 goals and then 10 assists in all competitions for Red Star Belgrade. And it once again highlights the how effective he is as a winger, because he doesn't play penalties. He plays out wide, but he still manages to get these goals and assists. And in the Champions League campaign, he actually registered 5 goal contributions, so 3 goals and then 2 assists. And I think that was more than 80% of Red Star Belgrade's total goals in the competition as well. He got a goal against Manchester City at the Etihad. So it's been a good time for him at Red Star, but it was always going to be the question of the next challenge, because Bukari this season has now won the back-to-back treble with Red Star. What really is the next level for him? It feels like he's sort of reached the end in Serbia and maybe wants a new challenge. And so I do suspect that's the motivation behind this move.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because he's coming to Austin. He's going to be a guy that this team depends on. It's a team that we've maybe overachieved a little bit as far as what people expected of Austin to do. We're, I think, at time of recording, 6th place in the Western Conference, but really lacking in that top end talent. And so as soon as he gets here, Austin's going to be relying on him to be one of the big guys along Sebastian Driussi, who is the talisman of the team now. But that's kind of all as far as attacking talent goes. So yeah, he's going to have his opportunity to shine here for sure. You talked about his speed and watching that goal against Manchester City. It's one of those spring him in behind and nobody's catching him at that point, right? What are the parts of his game where he can improve? Like, where do you think he can grow a little bit?
So I think an aspect of his game that he can definitely improve is how he's able to manipulate his way around tight spaces. I do think he thrives when there's a lot of green grass to run into and running behind. That's why he preferably probably plays on the right wing, because he can always go on the outside and he has to make a decision. The big problem is when he comes in central and maybe he's playing as a left winger and he cuts into the central areas. There are always going to be bodies there. It's about how he is able to find his way in and around these tight spaces. That's something that I think he can work on. The thing about fast players is that they always see everything in 100 kilometers per hour. But are there moments where he could have slowed it down? Are there moments where instead of trying to beat his man, maybe he could have stopped, picked the pass, helped the team move up forward? That I think is the next level for him. But it's also a case of coaching where you want to maximize his strength. You always want to make sure that you're giving him the opportunity to run in behind, because that's just not the player that he is. He's never going to slow it down or play in the middle, be doing cross turns and trying to beat. No, he just wants to run in behind and just keep running. So maybe that's an area that he can work on, but I don't feel he has to once he's being tactically used right.
I know you probably don't know this, but Austin we've only existed, this is our 4th season. We've been very slow the entire time they've existed. And so I don't think Austin fans are ever going to ask him to slow down.
Let me tell you an interesting story. Yeah? So he grew up in the eastern part of Ghana, and during his time at the JHS, he was playing with his seniors always, and this guy would be able to run from the center circle and go past everyone who's older than him and go and score. And it got to a time where his opponents started saying that, nah, this young guy uses black magic. And so what they would do is that they would take him to the King's Palace for them to actually check whether spiritually there's something backing him. And then when they go, there's nothing wrong. The guy is just super talented. And eventually they just accepted that, look, this guy is something else. And everyone just got behind him. He went to Accra, joined Accra Lions, and then went to Trenčín in Slovakia, went to Ghent, Nantes, and then Serbia for Red Star Belgrade, and now potentially in the US as well. He has a very huge fan base here in Ghana where whenever he's playing for the Black Stars, they do have like a banner with his face on it, because most people from where he came from in the East Manfe do not make it to the top level like this. And so they've seen his development. They've seen him from that young guy, now playing at the World Cup, scoring for the Black Stars. And it's just really good for them to see as well. So I'm sure Austin will be getting new fans here in Ghana, especially in the eastern part.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad you brought up his background. I wanted to ask you about that. I found a couple of interviews with him where he talks about growing up on a cocoa farm. I think he said he has 8 brothers and sisters. And so just like you see the guy who, I think he came onto a lot of people's radar on the world stage when he scores this goal against Portugal in Qatar and does the Cristiano Ronaldo celebration. And I think people see this and they think, oh, this is like a big flashy guy. He's trying to like always about bringing attention to himself. But from everything else I've seen and watching his film at Red Star, he seems to be a pretty humble guy and comes from like a very rural area.
Yeah. I had the opportunity of going to his hometown in the eastern part of Ghana. I think right before the World Cup, where we interacted with some of his family and his friends and also his teachers as well. And look, this is a guy who his parents would sort of scold him because when they take him to school, he leaves to go and play football. Football was the only thing that he has. And then when they give them, money to use for farming tools, I think all of his siblings were farming at that point, sort of like supporting their parents to be able to raise enough funds to take care of themselves. This guy will use the money that he gets from it to buy boots. He doesn't go to class or prefer to go to play football. And he faced resistance from it at the beginning from his parents. But I think everyone just hopped on when they realized that, now this guy is just too talented and we cannot let this slide away. And it just shows you how much he is determined and would go any extra mile to ensure that he gets what he wants.
That's amazing. I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything else you wanted to get off your chest about Osman Bukari or any other thoughts?
I think yeah, that's it. I think he's a really fantastic player. Throughout his career, unfortunately, especially in Europe, he's never had the opportunity to sort of make any team his. He's played in a supporting role, supporting cast across the teams that I've mentioned earlier. And maybe at Austin, he can finally be the main man where he's the reason that people actually go to the stadium and get fans excited. So there's that opportunity for him. He's still in his mid-20s. As I said earlier, the MLS is no longer seen as a retirement league. We've seen the likes of Miguel Almiron move from the MLS and head straight to the Premier League. So it doesn't necessarily mean that once he moves to Austin, that's the end. And who knows? It could be the game changer for him, where he becomes a main man and then he could potentially make another big move.
Awesome. Well, Owuraku Ampofo, thanks so much for joining us. I think our listeners will probably want to follow your coverage of Bukari and Ghana. Where can people find your work?
So I'm on Twitter at _Owuraku Ampofo, and then on Facebook, Owuraku Ampofo, Instagram, Owuraku_Ampofo. So OWURAKUAMPOFO.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you too.
When no one is around.
Thank for nothing, you never.
La gente
Oh my God.